Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Brad, thank you so much for, first of all, creating this RMS Climb event. And I'm going to be talking about, how challenge becomes your biggest opportunity if you understand what's most important in your business. Really, what is the gold mine? Because we think it's what we sell. And so I want to kind of disprove that and give you a different way to focus on that. And but I'm so thrilled. I've literally, since March of this year, I've been in touch with hundreds of entrepreneurs. How are they doing? How are they adjusting? What is their pivot? What is their challenge? And what's interesting is, while every one of us are dealing with challenges and our plans for how the year was going to go completely got disrupted, there's a lot of opportunity here. I actually think what's happening this year is showcasing where to look in our business so we can position for success going forward. So there's a huge opportunity, and I want to discuss where to look in your business to really unlock that. And again, thank you so much, Brad and the RMS team, because I think this Climb event is an example of pivoting by identifying what's needed and really providing the value. And in RMS's cases, it's providing the value for you to really pivot and dig in and shift your business. So let's get started. The first piece I want to talk about is the as soon as I can get my, here we go. So the first piece I want to talk about are what we're dealing with this year. So with, the challenge of 2020 is the business impact. Certainly there's a human impact of the pandemic this year, global pandemic, but there's also been a business impact. And, from lockdown in the spring to just fear pervasive in the marketplace. Now in pharmacy and clinics, your essential services, but still, even with essential services, how you need to deal with, how you need to adapt, how you need to protect your team, how you need to interact with your patients, that's still changed. So there's a lot of challenge in the marketplace. An interesting thing, again, I've talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs, and one of the things that I've noticed is that the impact of this year was an acceleration of trends. So I've been talking about new business rules since the late 2000s. I think about 2008 or 2009, I've been talking about there are new business rules to operate, to position your business for success and profitability. And, I've been watching this increased commoditization pressure. I've been, squeezing of margins, challenging of operating your business. What worked 5, 6, 7 years ago just isn't working anymore. The whole model has changed. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the pressure or crisis of this year has actually accelerated trends that were already going on. So, for example, one of the trends that really started in the 80s was an increase towards mass customization. And another trend that I see is a subscription model. So, the idea is that you have patients who subscribe to what you offer, and you actually make their life easier by just taking care of it. And a synchronized medication program is an example of a subscription model. But that, you'll see there's a lot of subscriptions that you can opt into in the marketplace. And I think that's increasing. And the other thing for me is that there's been a shift to a customer-centric, solution-based business model. And we're going to be talking about that what you sell is actually not what your business is. And we need a different way of looking at that. And it's almost as if in 2019, what you were doing in 2019 to be successful, or even if you were being squeezed in 2019 and you were struggling in 2019, in 2020, it's a full stop. So we have to pivot, we have to adjust. The good news is we're getting a huge amount of information on what that pivot needs to be. And really the purpose of this presentation is to give you where to look. So again, this is a key distinction that your business is not what you sell. It is the value you create. A different way of saying that is your products and services are actually the vehicle for how you create value. So in pharmacy, for example, if you think you're selling medication, if you think your business is dispensing medication, there's a lot of independent pharmacies that are not doing well or have gone out of business or have sold. And the same for clinic pharmacies. So what's interesting here is we need to shift what you think of as the value, and just what you do, what you fill, what you sell is important, but consider that the vehicle. What we want to emphasize is the value you create, because that's how you escape being judged on price alone. I'm going to be talking about 3 different mindset shifts. And the mindset shifts are really looking at how do you navigate the current challenge that we're in, the change that's happening this year. How do you navigate that? Now, again, Brad introduced me and shared my book, Up Solutions. And what's interesting about that is I wrote the book in the last couple of years. It was released the end of January. And of course, the whole world changed in March. Saying that, the book really is the roadmap to position your business for success. Even before we had lockdown, it's the exact same changes you need to engage with and shift how you think about your business and how you position your business. All of that walks through in the book. So we're going to take 3 of the mindsets from the book and actually talk through how do you start engaging and leaning into that right now. And the first mindset shift is the opportunity in change. So every time something changes, you have an opportunity to look, there's something new that's possible. And it's like, there's the saying, when one door closes, another door opens. The problem is we spend so long kind of dealing with and frustrated about and almost grieving the closed door, we forget to shift and look at what's now possible. So one of the things is really being aware of what is now possible that wasn't possible last year. What is the opportunity in change? And an interesting piece with this is whenever you deal with crisis interrupts all patterns. So it actually creates a kind of a new playing field, and you have advantages that you take into it. And that's what we want to really lean on. But crisis interrupts all patterns. So for one simple example of this is that your customers consider your patients that they have buying patterns. And how we all like to operate is that we make a decision and then we just want to keep going forward and making that decision a correct decision, make that decision right. And we don't want to continually revisit it. What that means is we have patterns of where we shop and when we shop and all of that. So, your customers pretty much are your customers unless you give them a reason of why to go somewhere else. We want to really make sure you're not doing that. But that also means in your community, in your marketplace, all patterns are being disrupted. This is an incredible time to position why choose you in your marketplace, because this is the time to capture new patients because you're out there making a difference. I've seen this with financial planners. I've come across 2 financial planners, and there are many, many more, but 2 that I specifically have spoken to, that they right immediately, everyone's dealing with some kind of fear right now. And so they immediately went in to start creating data and regular newsletters and information and emails going out, just providing a different way of talking about your investments, what's happening. And they became this voice of calm and confidence. And so what's happening is their business has expanded. I have a really good friend of mine, and she owns a pet food store. And it's actually a small independent pet food store. She opened one in a small town, like 5,000 people 2 years ago. And then right in the middle of lockdown in May, they were already working towards it, and they continued on. They opened their second location in another, a little bit larger town about 40 minutes away. So here's the thing that's interesting about this. Immediately they closed their doors. and they offered curbside free delivery in a fairly large area. And they spent about a month really updating their website. They added Shopify, so people could order online, and they weren't trying to build a global marketplace. They were trying to take care of their existing customers. So they want to make it easier to interact with them. And here's one of the things that I've noticed. Even essential service businesses right now, how you interact with your customers has probably changed. So whether that's more drive-through or curbside, shifting your internal processes and structures and team engagement so that you're taking care of patients, they're not waiting, they're given confidence. Whatever that is, you have to change, even if you're essential services, how you interact and deal with your customers. So what happened with my friend's pet food store is they've expanded. Oh, the other thing she did, she has a Facebook presence and has been posted regularly in local Facebook groups. And so she's, whether it's specials, information, taking care of your pets during lockdown, some fun information. She's been available, and they're very active in social media. So what that's happened is her business has expanded. They've actually had to hire people to keep up with the business growth. And her new store that opened when it was still in lockdown, but they were doing curbside delivery and did some fun local events, even though they couldn't have people in the store. It's already, in the first 7 months it's opened, it now has sales greater than the first store. So it is absolutely possible to operate successfully during crisis, but you have to shift how you think about it. In contrast, there's another, one of my favorite businesses. I'm a horse rider, and so one of my favorite businesses is a local tack shop. And in contrast, they did offer curbside, and they do also offer ordering online and free shipping. The challenge is that their website is so hard to navigate, it's almost impossible to order what you want online. And they haven't moved that forward enough. So their sales are down. So it's crisis interrupts all patterns, and we need to start looking at what is working, who are our customers, what do they need. The next piece, when we look at mindset shifts, so the first one, this is really important. The first one is opportunity and change. There's always opportunity when there's change. Even if we feel like we're being pressured or squeezed and frustrated, take a look around. What is opening up? What's possible that wasn't possible before? The second mindset shift is understanding your patients. Your patients are your gold mine. Understanding who they are, what they need, how to create solutions for their needs. This is your gold mine. And I want to just kind of put in place here that your customers don't even know the questions to make an effective decision. This is really important. We tend to think from our perspective and assume that everyone knows what we know. And your customers don't know. They don't even know the questions to ask to make an effective decision. My favorite example in pharmacy is you have a newly diagnosed patient with diabetes. And they're like a deer in the headlights. They have no idea. They, come up to the counter with these prescriptions and they're terrified, and it's, they don't know where to start. Well, if you are paying attention to that, you can actually guide them through so they leave your pharmacy feeling confident and supported. And let me tell you what a difference that makes for who they then talk about. Well, you've got to go to ABC Pharmacy because, they're the only ones. So really and truly pay attention that your customers don't know what you know. And then you want to start, when you start paying attention to the customer's perspective, what are your patients, what are their challenges? What are their problems? Are they struggling with their medication? Are they taking them as prescribed? Are they dealing with side effects? A great story I heard from a pharmacy owner. He had a patient come in and she wanted a refund on her antibiotics that she'd purchased. And, he was there. And so he said, yes, I'll do that for you. And then he said, we don't normally refund prescriptions. And she's, well, I had all these, I was not feeling well. I was, diarrhea. She had side effects. And the owner commented and said, if you've been taking a probiotic, chances are you wouldn't have experienced those side effects. But it's what the patient said back to him that stuck out and why this was a significant story. The patient said back to him, I wish someone had told me that. Well, that's the job of the team. You assume patients know if they get an antibiotic, they should also be taking a probiotic. Literally, you would have made a big difference for that patient had they said that. So it's really paying attention that the customers don't know, and they don't even know, they know what they're uncomfortable with, but they don't know why. So you're looking at here, how can you make your customers, how can you make their life easier? How can you make their life better? How do you simplify it for them? So that's the second mindset shift, is really paying attention to who your customers are, what's important to them. The third mindset shift is recognizing the wisdom and experience in your business. The rule of thumb is that your team, if they've been working in your business for 3 months or more, are an expert compared to your customers. So it's because they've been working with patients day in and day out, by the end of 3 months, they're an expert compared to your customers. Do they need to learn more? Absolutely. But from your customer's perspective, you already can deliver a huge amount of value. So, this is part of the training of paying attention to who are your customers, what do they need, and your job is to educate them. Every single team member's job is to educate the customers on what's possible. If you're not doing that, I want you to consider that you're actually ripping your customers off, your patients off, because they don't know what you can offer. And it's this rule of thumb, and I'm a huge advocate of setting your team up to win. So if your patients don't know what you know, if your team understands this, you literally set your team up to be superstars. The key piece of turning your team into heroes is setting them up to win and setting them up to understand that their job is to educate and offer who are their patients based on what you know about them, what might they need, asking questions and then educating so that the patient has choice. If you're not doing that, you're taking away their choice. So those are the 3 mindset shifts. This is really important. The 3 mindset shifts: opportunity and change. Literally lean into what's possible now that wasn't possible a year ago. Understanding your patients, they are your gold mine. Taking care of your patients' needs, turn them into repeat customers, and that's what's the profitability in your business is. And then the wisdom experience in your business. This is how you create value. This is how you create solutions, by educating and offering. Understand, if you help somebody make an effective buying decision, you're creating a huge amount of value. That alone, because without your help, they're stabbing in the dark. They don't know. So shifting gears a little bit. So those are the 3 mindset shifts. And I talked a little bit earlier about, I believe there are new business rules to be successful in your business. And the first of those is that we need to shift our focus from sales to solutions. We've been used to tracking sales in our business and focusing on sales, the daily sales, the weekly sales, the monthly sales, gross profit. We have to shift our focus to providing solutions. And this is huge. The next new business rule is you need to shift from focusing on transactions to relationships. And this is it. This is kind of every business has this secret formula of understanding who their best fit customers are, what's important to them, and positioning what you offer as a solution rather than selling products or services. Now, my book is called Up Solutions. You're lucky enough, you're going to be hearing from Chris Corneliuson as part of this Climb event. And Chris is actually the brilliant entrepreneur who coined the term Up Solutions. And he's going to be sharing, how to, engage your team to think from this perspective. Absolutely brilliant. And you really want to be paying attention to everything that you offer should be set up as a solution. It is a subtle shift, but it's almost like a 180-degree shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what you're selling to the marketplace, you're looking at what do you create, what value do you create for the marketplace. So it's a subtle shift, but it will position you for success rather than being squeezed on price. So here's the rule of thumb. If you aren't clearly communicating why choose you, and the why is the solution and value provide. So if you're not clearly communicating why choose you, people choose the lowest perceived price because that's the only information they have to go on. If you're not telling the why, the only information, because they don't know how to make it, they don't have the information to make an effective decision, so they're making it based on price. And the problem here is it's usually perception of price. And that's the chain's game. Walmart's game is advertising that, falling ball because they create a perception of lowest price. And anyone else in business knows that is, it's their loss leader. So you can't compete with Walmart's advertising budget. So you need to be out there communicating why choose you. Because if it's left on price, then people are going to make decisions that's not in their best interest. And I'll give you an example that I've seen some, great buy lines for pharmacies. One was Ward Drug in North Carolina, and it was when you absolutely positively want to feel better, choose Ward Drug. There's another, caring for you and for your family. I think that's a Health Mart, tagline. But since 1988, for example, there's ways of talking about, but if you're focused on creating value and the solution for your customers, you literally create buzz for them a way to talk about what you do and why choose you. So how do you lean into this? So we've talked about the mindset shifts that are important, opportunity and change, focusing on understanding your customer, and the wisdom and experience, the value you create, and at the very baseline, helping your customers, your patients, to make an effective decision that has them feel better or gives them direction. That alone is a huge amount of value. And we tend to take it for granted. We overstep that, and we want to focus on that because from the customer's perspective, that's it. The rest is your vehicle. A great example of that, a good friend of mine decided he wanted to put up a floating shelf on a wall in his office. And so he goes to one of those storage, stores, and he's in the shelving aisle, and a young clerk comes up to him and said, "Can I help you?" And, this friend of mine said, no, I'm fine. We often, no, I'm good. But the clerk knows that he's in the shelving aisle. So he asked a simple question: what type of wall would you like to put a shelf up on? And, my friend said, well, just a drywall. And then the clerk said, well, what would you like to put on your shelf? And, my friend said, oh, it's just some books and, maybe a little picture. He said, okay, so based on the type of wall, what you want to put on it, my recommendation is this shelf. And then he went on to explain why, which was, how it's anchored into the wall. Said if you chose this shelf, it would fall off with the weight. It's not properly secured. But if you choose this shelf, then, it'll stay on the wall and it's right for what you want to do. And so, my friend was ecstatic, and he walked out of the store buying an $85 shelf, and he'd been looking at a $25 shelf. Now, why is this significant? Well, certainly it's more revenue and probably more profitability for the company, but my friend left feeling he was taken care of, felt like he got the right product, and he was happy with the outcome. Had he bought the $25, without any help, had he bought the $25 shelf, it probably would have fallen off his wall within a month, and he would have just thought, oh, that's cheap, that store sells cheap stuff. This is the role and the different way of thinking about, and why we want to focus on solutions and relationships, literally creating solutions for your customers' needs. So what's next? First of all, know your patient data. If you want to know who your customers are and you want to know how to take care of the needs, you must know your patient data. And that's where RMS comes in. I mean, for years with pharmacy owners that I've worked with, RMS has been a leader at a point of sale systems. And part of that is because you're better able to capture the patient data. And that's essential right now. It's not just focusing on what you sell and ringing up sales. You have to know, you have to be able to pull out that data and analyze that data. So yes, you have to manage your inventory. Yes, you want to capture your sales, but you need to understand that patient data. The next piece is you need to review that patient data with your leadership team. So what are you selling? Who are you selling to? Why did they buy it? What's important to them? What might they be missing? You're looking for what reason are you giving for your patients to choose you? And then you want to have, you might identify what metrics do you track, probably weekly data, monthly data. What do you do? And you want to identify your team members and review that data with. So part of reviewing the data is always putting in the question, what do you know about your patients? What about them? What's showing up in the data? What do you know about interacting with them? What do you know about your patients? And using that information to brainstorm with your team, what are other options? What can you do? What are simple improvements that will improve the experience of your team, experience of your business, will improve your customers' outcomes, your patient outcomes. And this is a key piece, so engaging and setting your team up to win. Now, of course, Terry Norvell is going to be talking later on in the Climb event and around leadership. And so you really want to pay attention because she'll give you the key components. The piece here is really, how do you, as an owner, as a leader, how do you set your team up to win? Part of that is having data. Part of that is discussion and then brainstorming with them. If you brainstorm with your team, you have them, first of all, look at how they interact with your patients differently, how they create value. And then you also engage their thinking so they're part of creating the solutions. If they're part of it, they will be the ones that'll be delivering it. So always looking at what are your problems, what solutions can you offer? I recommend, certainly you should have weekly metrics, and with the leadership team, you're meeting weekly. With your entire team, at least monthly, that you're having some kind of a monthly meeting. I personally recommend you have it at the same time every week or every month, so you build a rhythm and it happens. And part of the monthly meetings with your entire team is to share data with them, to share experiences, have them share what they've experienced, what worked, what didn't work, what did they observe, and together brainstorm solutions. I think we are in a period of the biggest opportunity of our lifetimes. Historically, every time we've had a crisis, and especially a significant crisis, this might be 2020 might be unprecedented in our lifetime, but there's a history that it has happened before. And every time there's been a crisis, once we've adjusted to the crisis and really established a new normal, it's not about going back, it's a new normal. There has been a greater level of abundance for all. That will come out of this as well. And you have the opportunity to be a leader in your community by paying attention to who are your customers, what do they need, how do you position solutions for their need. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have the opportunity to lead our communities out of this crisis and to a new level of abundance. So with that, I want to leave you with a quote: turning your team into heroes and your customers into raving fans by identifying and solving your customers' problems. That needs to be the focus. I want to say thank you to Brad and the RMS team for creating this event and having me be part of it. And to all of you on this event, to your success.